Today I'm going to show you the first rough draft and the last rough draft and show you the progression of that and my way of writing. And again, you'll come up with your own style, but I'm going to show you mine. The one thing about this essay that never changed, that remained consistent, was this initial introductory photograph. I think this is just so simple and really brings home the point of the essay. Now I'm going to show you my very first rough draft. I'm following the outline that I created, and you'll be able to see that a great deal of it is overwritten, and I underlined my thesis statement. It's going to be required for my professor, and I want to have it there the entire time I'm writing so I know where I am in my essay. And as you can see at this point, I haven't even figured out the spirituality of the whole thing. And this is, I don't have the deeper I, the deeper we, the shared we. I just have this. Okay, so now let me show it to you in all the pages. And you do that, and I like to do this whenever I'm through. I do this by going to View, Multiple Pages. I always overwrite. I like to have more content than not enough. I'd rather cut down than have to go back out to my notes and figure out where I am. Now, as I write this second draft, this is the introduction. Look how long that is. Look at this paragraph right here. This goes from here all the way over to here. That is too long. That contains the thesis statement, and it's going to be a bit longer paragraph because we're asking a big question here. But that is when I determined that the introduction is going to have to be multiple paragraphs in order for it to be to fit into this, because it's too big of a topic. Again, normally the introduction would simply be this one paragraph right here, and that would do it. My thesis statement would go right in here somewhere, and I would, that would be it. But for this essay, for this bigger question, we have that. Now, I write a lot of this in my own words, and I have some stuff about my mother that I believe I took out in the final edit. But, I'm going along, and I can see the gaps. I can see where there's a huge paragraph. That's going to be a problem. I'm going to have to go back and fix it. I go through here, and I see the images are kind of lining up with each other, and I like that. I like to have... Remember, an image needs to be there for a reason. It's just not popped in there for nothing. And I wish I'd done one thing, and I this to you, and that is that, in the last rough draft, number these figures. Because that took me a long time at the end, but then if you take one out, you got to renumber and everything. So there we go. And you can see a huge gap here. Going to have to fix that. That's where we put the little showstopper, the graph. Didn't end up at the beginning of a page. I kind of wanted it to, but that's all right. Okay, so that was the start of the rough draft. Okay, now let's go to the final rough draft. There it is. I wrote the abstract, which is the easiest thing in the whole essay to write, because we have a formula. Sentence number 1 says this. Sentence number 2 says that. Sentence number 3. So I followed that same template that you all have for writing a rough draft, and that's just the easiest part of the whole essay. So that's been written. This is what the introduction turned out to be. This is what the title turned out to be. I couldn't use that title image, and I got all excited about the Matisse thing with the poster and the whole Matisse story, and I just created my own title image. It's kind of fun, kind of Matisse, kind of different. Again, this stayed the same, and you can see where I had to label the figure. And you do that by clicking left into that, and you will add when you're formatting the picture, you will add, it gives you the option to add a citation. So everything is cited. All the pictures have been labeled. The introductory, the very first paragraph really didn't change too much. But as you can see, I trimmed it down some because I put my own self into my essay, and then I determined later whether or not where I need to have that or not. And so then we go on down, and this is that tipping point formula. Remember the very first formula that we saw? This goes straight along the strategy. Introduction, and then we talk about what the power of context, and that is what was going on in the world at the time that influenced 4 million people to want to do something like this. And I have some pictures that I have in there because I'm a loyalist to my reader. I want my reader to never have to pause, to not have to do anything but ponder. And if they stop, it's because they just want to consider the point I just made. I am an advocate for my reader. I want to give them an image that takes them into the essay that I'm writing. And again, this is an MLA essay. If I was writing a scientific paper about how to fly an F-22, I wouldn't have pictures of happy people on plane. I'd have diagrams because I'm teaching somebody how to fly a F-22. So, or whatever the thing is. But this is a modern language association essay. It's a sociological essay. It's an essay about people. It's about people, and it's about God and people and spirituality. All right, so I have pictures in there for that. And given a lot of thought to that. In this section of Sign of the Times, it's the Vietnam War. Again, we're going to have a long paragraph here. See this paragraph? And I chose not to put in gruesome pictures from Vietnam because I'm talking about young people inspired to go to an event. And so I want young people who were somewhere else at the time, i.e. serving in Vietnam. Okay, and then this goes on, and this is something that happened in the final thing. This was a hyperlink. I didn't even know it was going to show up as a hyperlink, but I get it all the way to publish, and I find out that that's a hyperlink. So it's good to sometimes just check and see by left-clicking, is that a hyperlink? You know, and it'll show you. All right, so going on. Everything is in, you'll notice that I have a lovely color scheme. Everything's kind of in the same color palette. Things I want to have stand out, stand out. I think this is kind of angelic, and I want it to stand out. And then I have pastoral images. And then there's no way on earth I could get this in color. This is the newspaper ad that they posted the day before the concert. Okay, and then I have a couple of graphs. This is, you know, in setting up the Sign of the Times, you know, when we consider the climate that's going on, I wanted to not just list the assassinations that had happened, but actually include those in a graph that is eye-catching and shows you a timeline. It's very simple. It shows you what's going on, and I felt like that was a good place to put that kind of an image. And we go on down, and this is some of this stuff is where we started from. This is an okay sized paragraph here. It's a long paragraph, but everything in it's necessary, and it all goes back to a topic sentence. Each paragraph contains a topic sentence, and that means that everything in that paragraph will have something to do with the topic sentence. How do I not have to fret over that? Because it's in the outline. And some of these pictures ended up getting scrunched, and then we got, but you know, it's just the way it goes. I don't want to put pictures in for picture's sake, and it just happened that way in this essay. And it's just the way it is. See, these are nicely aligned right straight across. These are the connectors. Remember, that's all part of the tipping theory. So we got connectors. And then I put this together myself because one of the things about an argument essay is that you have to contend with the opposition. Well, the opposition would say, you know, these kids were easy to control. They're all on drugs. Yeah, well, you know, all the concerts had kids that were on drugs, and they all ended up with tear gas, and this one in Altamont ended up in a murder, which I have pictured right there. And these kids were on drugs too, and these kids are storming the stage at Altamont, and they're on drugs too. And these are the Woodstock kids during the worst thunderstorm in history, and they're having a ball. And, yes, they're on drugs too. So I have to discount that whole drug argument that the kids were easy to control because they were on drugs. Heck, they were all on drugs at this time. So, that's enough I say about that. I felt like I did a good job. You'll notice that I have naysayers, and that's the only time I give them any attention is right here. And, of course, this is fixed in the final edit. It's a new paragraph, so there we go. See, that's how we do a rough draft. You just manipulate the pictures you need, move them around a little bit, add the little figure information, and then everything slips and slides around until you save it as a PDF. And then this is that same little bridge. Isn't that something? And what it is that because they didn't expect the crowds to be what they were, they couldn't get the musicians to the venue. There was nowhere to get them in. They had them all in hotels out and around the county, but they couldn't get them to the festival. And so at the last minute, Chris Langhart, just a little sharp thing that he was, built this little bridge, the famous Woodstock Bridge. They parked in helicopters out here in this field, and then they came through the helicopters and they came up this little thing. That's how they got on stage. That was from day 2, where I was just looking at that picture going, what is that thing over there? Isn't that fun? I love essay writing. Okay, and then we have this information here and each one of these little points. And this is another graphic that I put together about the security. The whole philosophy of security was very different. They had been consulted by people who said you should have a fire moat around the stage with oil in it. And so if the crowd begins to storm the stage, you can set the oil on fire. This is what geniuses suggested that they do. They said you should have guard dogs, really vicious guard dogs, patrolling the area. Genius idea. They said you should have all kinds of police and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, well, that's just a brilliant idea, because that's worked so well up to now, where every single solitary outdoor festival had been tear gassed and hosed down, and arrests and fights and all kinds of mayhem. So at Woodstock, Michael Lang, he gets credit for it, and I think it was a joint decision, but he says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go with these people, and they're going to be our security. And so I created a graphic myself showing this is the security team at Woodstock, where there were no fights, there were no stabbings, no rapes, none of that kind of stuff. And this is the security at Altamont, which was 4 months after Woodstock, touted as Woodstock West, where there were how many murders? At least 8 rapes, murders, stabbings, looting. So that's, again, dealing with the opposition. Okay, and then we have the poster. Again, the poster's all we had. This is the original poster. This is the poster that became the iconic. And this was inspired by Matisse's paper cutouts period, when Matisse had aged so much that his hands wouldn't work, but he discovered that he could use little school scissors. And so he just did his paper cutouts, which were some of his most brilliant work. And then this is a very simple little graph that I found in the research. I love simple charts, simple graphs. My reader doesn't have to stop. They don't have to try to figure something out. This was one of the spiritual things that I found, and it's just like when you have, because what I pointed out in this poster is that none of the posters at the time in this graphic that I put together, none of them state the purpose of the festival. They all have the highlight bands, who's going to be the big draw for the festival, but nobody puts down what the purpose of the festival is, except Woodstock, where the mission statement is right there. 3 days of peace and music. That's your mission statement. And then I go on to prove that when you have a mission statement, this is what happens. Isn't that fun? Simple chart. And I explain to the reader what the chart's supposed to do. Now I'm getting up into the spiritual part of the thing, the theory of Western esoteric spirituality, which you saw in the strategy thing, and now I'm filling that out, and I'm learning as I'm going, because I don't know anything until I start learning. Now I'm learning, and I go down to this one awesome thing This is that theory of the dot theory, which is, when you give those little kids, or I do it sometimes myself, you get a coloring book and it has the paint by number, or you connect the little numbers, and then it comes out to be a picture of a cat or an elephant or something. Well, I applied that same principle to Woodstock, where you started with the field and all the dots connected to make this. Isn't that fun? I had fun with that. And you can do that. You can, play with theory. This is the Matisse, another picture bringing up the Matisse thing, and this is his cutout phase, and there she is. There's our girl at the most terrible time of the festival, where everything's washing out. I mean, it was just a complete, total flooded mess, and there's where we put her. Figure 15. Isn't that fun? I love doing that. I love when I find something that just, to me, captures the essence of a spirit of something, and I find just the perfect place to put it. I really like that. And then this was a lot of information. This is all, we're already up in the heavens. We're already into that kind of thing. And so this is information, and I didn't add an image. Well, I did add an image later on. I went back in the final edit and did. Then people were saying, well, another one of the little naysayers were saying that, I don't even know what excuse it was, but this is Woodstock 1999. And this is what happened at Woodstock 99. And those kids were on drugs too, and they set fire to the whole place. So, there you go. Again, I'm always coming back to my thesis statement of how did this happen? And people who want to give it an easy answer, it's not such an easy answer, is it? 4 million people. This little Woodstock 1999 was 220,000 people. That's nothing. And they set fire to the whole place. Well, there you go. Then we get into this whole part of the philosophy where I'm now off into my own thing. And I've discussed and described, and now we're going on into the whole music, because that was one part of the essay that I really wanted to fill out, and that's the music. And of course, we can't talk about all 32 bands. There's nobody going to read that. That's a dissertation, which I might do someday. But I can't talk about all 32 bands, so I picked the ones that are my favorites. And what do I discover when I pick out the bands that are my favorites? Well, oddly enough, my favorite bands all played at 3:30. 3:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon, 3:30. How fun is that? All because I just go with the bands that I like best, that I think made the most influence on the festival, and I got that from watching the movie. I watched the director's cut, and I watched it twice. And I went, what are the pivotal moments? Where is it that these people connect with 600,000 people and keep everybody civil, basically happy, fully entertained, and calm? How's that happening? So I thought John Sebastian, which is all happenstance. There was no reason for him to perform. He wasn't scheduled to perform, and happened to be right there at the right time and was magic to that festival. Sly and the Family Stone, magic. He does a sing-along. You're going to get 600,000 people to sing along. That paragraph needs work. You can see it's too long. 600,000 people in a sing-along. Come on. Come on. 3:30 in the morning. Come on. And they all did it. They all sang along. It's incredible. Incredible. Then Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. The next night, 3:30 in the morning. And they've got acoustic guitars. You're going to reach 600,000 exhausted, tired, wet, messy people in the rain. And you're going to connect with them with acoustic guitars? Well, they did. And on we go here. Then we have our conclusion. So I've marked what I do when I go through this. This is the last rough draft before the big hurrah. And I see things like this that are too big. I just go in there and I highlight the whole thing. I don't want to have to figure out where I am later. And then I can come in and fix that paragraph and then just simply take out the color. I don't like to have to hunt around and see what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, and then this is about somewhere through the research process was when I went, I see Because everybody says, oh, it could never happen again. It could never happen again. It could never happen again. Well, maybe. Maybe that's right, because it's a pretty phenomenal thing. But this is a graphic that I put together for my final point of the essay before the afterword. And my final point of the essay is the similarities. And there they go. We found a little place for them. Got permission to use it. So I have on the left, this is what Woodstock was, the disaster of Woodstock. These are images of the Vietnam War. And just kind of how similar and connected the whole thing was. And then my afterword, that's when I brought in the Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner. You can't have a discussion of Woodstock and not touch base on that one. And that was pretty magical. And then I make my point about the March for Our Lives, which takes us back up here to the dedication, dedicated to the children of the world who must at times follow a drummer to march for our lives. Kind of pretty, huh? And again, step by step by step, just an erector set, just like you'd take Lincoln logs and build a little house. And there's all of our beautiful citations, all documented, hundreds of them. I will never have my name show up on a plagiarism list, because if I opened it and I looked at it, I cited it. And I don't care. A professor might look at this and say, well, you've got too many citations. I don't care. You're not the one that's going to get sued for plagiarism. I am, and I'm not going to take that risk. I'm going to mark it down. If I looked at it, it's cited. And if I used an image, it's cited and it has a clearance. There are the images. Some of them are like this. Some of them are numbered, figure 22, that kind of thing. They didn't all come out that way because it just didn't come out that way. And I don't argue with EasyBib because I think they know what they're doing. And it comes out as a perfect MLA citation page. And that's the essay. Now, finally, I would just like to show you the one that we turn in for grading. I didn't put in all the stuff, but that's our word count, which, you know. All right, and then on we go. Let me just do this so you can see multiple pages. It's easier. Okay, so all the paragraphs have been fixed and everything's all done. Here's the works cited, and under the works cited, I add, this is the outline, and it's messy, and I don't care. I'm not required to turn in a fabulous, perfect outline. I have my strategy, remember, that we've been working with the whole time. There's my strategy for the professor to see, and there's my completed detailed outline, messy as it can be, don't care. It wasn't required that I turn in the perfect outline. It was required that I turn in a complete outline. So there we have all that. And then I had so many pages of notes that I just put the, you know, if they need to see all the notes, I'll turn them in separately. But this would have gone on for days, and I just didn't put it in there. So that was the one to be graded, that contains all of the elements that are required, including the abstract and all that stuff. All right. So that's it, folks. That's how my process works. And I've encapsulated a lot of daily work into this particular project. And what I'm including under here are 2 more tutorials for you to watch optionally. One of them is called What to Do When It All Falls Apart. And the whole thing fell apart at one point. And if you'd like to see that detail, watch those tutorials. And the one under that is How to Fix It Once It All Falls Apart. And the fix made the essay so much better than it was before. So if you'd like to see those little tutorials, tune in and take a look at that, because inevitably, in every essay I know I've ever written, and I'll only keep it to my own perspective, it has always fallen apart at a certain point. A time happens where I think I don't know anything. I know less than I knew when I started. I don't know why I started this project. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing's coming together. The whole thing is fragmented. It's not logically sound, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I find something that was wrong in the final draft of the edit. And so if you'd like to see that, take a look. But this takes you on a little tour of how my process works, and now you can have fun determining how you learn. Do you learn as a visual learner? Do you learn by charts and graphs? And do you like bubble charts? What do you like to do? How do you like to learn? And you just become friends with yourself, and you find out that you can do anything once you just embrace the way that you learn. I am a visual learner, and that's how I relax. I would take breaks from reading articles and things, and I'd go over and look at a YouTube tutorial on one of the interviews of one of them, and then I'd go on, and sometimes I'd just pause and look at the musical performance. I studied that Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young performance of Sweet Judy Blue Eyes several times to just sort of see how in the world acoustic guitars, and you'd think that they'd come out there yelling and screaming and carrying on, and it's kind of magical. So anyway, take a look over things. Thank you for tuning in for this, and I wish you all the best of luck on your project. No, it's not going to be the gargantuan thing that this was, but this lets you see what a big old project looks like, and now you can see how important it is to narrow your topic and narrow. That's it.